Heyo, it's Cruising Kyle. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between snowboarding and skiing, and hopefully find out which one is right for you. The big difference between skiing and snowboarding is the way your body is facing and the movements that your body is making to get down the hill. If we look at a side-by-side clip where both the snowboarder and skier are facing down the hill in the correct orientation, you'll notice that the skier's body is facing down the hill and the snowboarder's body is twisted 90 degrees so that one side is facing down the hill. If we look at the kind of movements they're doing in these videos, you'll notice that the movements look very similar. They're both going side to side with their hips. They're both bending their knees. They're both putting their weight forward or down the hill. And the skis and snowboard are both tilting side to side. However, if we orient the bodies so that they're facing the same direction, and we look at these videos again, you'll notice that the skier's movements and the snowboarder's movements are totally different. The shoulders don't move. The hips are moving for snowboarders forwards and backwards, and for skiers side to side. Both knees are bent, and for the snowboarder, weight is on one side going down the hill, whereas for skiers, weight is forward on their toes going downhill. You'll also notice that the tilting of the board is side to side in line with their body and their hips, whereas the skis are going side to side perpendicular to their body, but also in line with their hips. It's very different kinds of movement for the body, and that's the big difference, is learning how to balance while utilizing those movements. We'll take a second to look at another little clip of them compared sideways. Again, you can see the big difference in the movement between skiing and snowboarding. Now, if you want to get into skiing or snowboarding, there's a lot of activities out there that you can try your hand at first, or if you are already invested in some of these activities, I might tell you which one to go for. So for snowboarding, some of the most common activities that are pretty similar include skateboarding, longboarding, wakeboarding, surfing, and ripsticking. Now, all of these share similar features to snowboarding. None of them are exactly like snowboarding, but if you want the closest match, I would encourage ripsticking. The movements you do with your feet, toe, toe, heel, heel, that's a very similar movement that you're going to be doing with snowboarding. So if you want something to practice in the meantime, while you're getting ready to snowboard or in the summer, I would recommend you pick up a ripstick. For skiing, there's not quite as many options, but there are some pretty obvious ones. Water skiing obviously is very similar. Rollerblading is really good, and ice skating is really good. Typically, I found that if people are comfortable in ice skates, then they pick up skiing really quickly because they're used to sliding around and controlling their momentum on a slippery surface, which is exactly what skiing is, just with longer blades. Now, let's talk about some pros and cons between skiing and snowboarding. We'll start with snowboarding. So the biggest pro to snowboarding is that once you master the basics and you can handle the basics, then it's really easy to improve. It's really easy to go from beginner to intermediate and intermediate to advanced with just a few small tips and tricks and adjustments in your riding, because it's not quite as technical as skiing. Unfortunately, that makes our first con. It takes longer to learn the basics. It's not a very natural way to move your body, and because of that, it just takes some time to learn. So be prepared to take time and practice snowboarding to get the basics down. It will take longer than you think it will. Some other pros for snowboarding is that it is really easy and comfortable to sit down and take a break. The boots are super comfortable. They're kind of like large sneakers. They feel a little bit like astronaut boots, but for the most part, they're They're really easy to walk in, they're comfortable to stand in. You can be in your snowboarding boots all day and it won't affect your feet as much as ski boots. It's also really easy to adjust and fix your bindings. They're super customizable. You can Frankenstein them, which means taking pieces from other different bindings and putting them on yours. You can do that for flair or out of necessity if you need to fix a part and you're low on money, whatever you need. Some other cons for snowboarding is that you might be sitting a lot, especially your first couple of lessons. You'll probably be spending some time sitting in the snow, which is why I highly recommend snow pants, because they're waterproof. Makes it more comfortable for you. It does take time to strap in and unstrap from your bindings, and it takes some practice getting used to it. And the lifts can definitely be a little awkward at times. Now, I am going to make a video for tips and tricks on how to get on and off lifts, and once you get the few tips and tricks, it's really not so bad, but just know that it's going to take a little bit of practice for those lifts. Now, let's move on to skiing. The biggest pro to skiing is that it is relatively easy to learn. Most of the movements you're making are natural movements you've already made in life, so it's not very hard to master the basics. But because skiing is a very technical sport, once you get the basics down, it's hard to go from beginner to intermediate and intermediate to advanced. The higher you want to go, the longer it's going to take, the more practice it's going to take. That's our first con, is that it takes a lot of time and effort to get good at skiing. Some other pros for skiing is that it's really quick and easy to put your skis on and take them off. You just step right in and go. That also makes it really easy to get on and off lifts because you don't have to take time strapping in and unstrapping. You just ski right up, sit down, ski right off, you're good to go. However, some cons to skiing is that it's hard to sit down and stand up while you're strapped in. It takes a lot of practice. Most beginners find themselves, when they fall, taking their skis off, standing up, putting their skis back on, and then continuing, which can be really frustrating the first 25 times you fall because they're all going to be within the first half an hour, sometimes, not always. So sitting and standing can be really hard in skis. Also, the boots are not as comfortable. If your boots fit properly, they will hurt a little bit. They'll pinch. Typically, when you are skiing, you don't feel them. They feel comfortable, they feel great. But when you're not skiing, when you're standing around, when you're walking around, when you're waiting, they will hurt your feet. Nothing feels better than taking your ski boots off at the end of the day. It's like a huge sigh of relief. Kind of like when you've had too much food on Thanksgiving dinner and then you unbutton your pants and you're like, oh, thank God. That's how your ski boots are supposed to feel. So if you're not ready for a little bit of pain in your feet, then ski boots are not the way to go for you. In conclusion, if you are looking for something to hop on and learn real quick and get going and have some fun, then skiing is probably your best bet. If, however, you're okay with spending a little more time getting the hang of things and taking some time to practice all the different skills you need, then snowboarding might be a better fit for you. It's certainly a little more challenging in the beginning, and that's why I like it more. That's why I think it's a little more rewarding. If you really like skiing or snowboarding, I highly recommend trying both disciplines. If you get good at one, pick up the other, and it'll make you better at both. If you think right away that you're going to want to learn both, I would recommend starting with snowboarding and then going to skiing. The initial time investment it takes to get the hang of snowboarding will let you know kind of what you're in store for when you want to get better at skiing. Also, if you already get comfortable going down sideways, then going down facing forward on skis won't be as much of an issue for you. It might even feel more comfortable. If you try both and you like one better, please let me know. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. And as always, like and subscribe my videos to learn more information. And I'll see you on the mountain.